Brianna Keilar, who is terrible. She's at CNN. She's another partisan hack who should have been eliminated during the Brian Stelter, Don Lemon cleanup that they did. But she managed to hold on. And she decides the real story here is JD Vance's military service. Listen.
I also think that JD Vance as a messenger on this may be an imperfect messenger, because we have, as you introduced him, as a combat correspondent, which was what his title was. But when you dig a little deeper into that, he was a public affairs specialist, someone who did not see combat, which certainly the title combat correspondent kind of gives you a different impression. So he may be the imperfect messenger on that.
Okay. She admits in the clip, that was his title. That's why he was introduced that way, because that was his actual title. But she doesn't like his responsibilities over there. So she would like to compare him unfavorably, Emily, to Tim Walz, who refused to go to Iraq. JD Vance fired back at Brianna Keilar saying, come on. When asked to go to Iraq, I went. And he served his country honorably. No, he wasn't in service for 24 years like Tim Walz, but he also was in service as a Marine for 4 full-time years. For 4 years full-time as a Marine, and served overseas in Iraq during a dangerous time. The nerve of this woman to try to diminish him because she doesn't like the actual responsibilities he had while there.
And I think it's something you only do if you're trying to rationalize your own partisan favor for the other person, because you can't handle that there may be an imbalance on this particular issue, that maybe JD Vance has more credibility on this issue. So in order to rationalize you feeling wrong about that, right? Like, it can't be right that JD Vance has more credibility on this. Let's not give him anything. We don't want to give him any credit. So you know what? Yeah, it's his title, but it's over. It's like, it's his freaking title. It's the actual title. Meanwhile, Tim Walz is using the wrong title and doing the overrepresentation, which again, at best, the best spin you can put on it is that he's complicit. He's allowing other people to say it. He's allowing his campaign to write it. So again, it's at best he's complicit, but at worst, he's actually actively participating in it. And we know for a fact the title is attributed incorrectly. So that's actually JD Vance's title. I mean, give me a break. You're going to split hairs when it comes to JD Vance, but you're not even going to split those hairs when it comes to Tim Walz, or you're going to choose to split the JD Vance hairs in this case instead of focusing immensely or more on the Tim Walz ones at all. I mean, that's a great representation of where their mindset is, actually.
Not to mention, as a member of the press, you'd think she'd have some respect for the dangers that even embedded reporters sent to Iraq faced in trying to bring the story back to Americans. Never mind somebody who's actually a Marine. So F you, Brianna Keilar. You're not a supporter of the troops. She's always trying to claim like she's married to a military guy, and like when she actually starts talking about them, it's always like this. Go ahead, Eliana.
I think it's worse than what both of you are saying. I think her remark was an intentional obfuscation of the issue here, in that nobody has accused JD Vance of misrepresenting what his position was or what his duties were when he went abroad. He writes about them in his book, that he was a press correspondent and he helped the Marines field media inquiries in Iraq. She says he may not be the best messenger, apparently because he didn't see combat. That's the implication. But the accusation against Tim Walz isn't that he didn't see combat. It's that he misrepresented his responsibilities and his duties. Nobody's trying to diminish his record of service to this country. The criticisms are that he has not been honest about it.
And didn't go to combat. And didn't go to combat when he knew it was coming his way. I mean, we had on Tom Behrens, the guy who went and fulfilled this role instead as Command Sergeant Major. He was on the day after this story broke last week. And he was saying he left his guys in the lurch. He was like, you have to understand, in the military, this kind of thing is unthinkable. Like, he helped train them. He was the highest non-commissioned officer. He trained these guys. They're getting ready for war. And then when war came, when it was time to actually go do the thing that they'd been training for, he cut and ran. That's why he saw it as such a betrayal of the guys. You know, it is about more than just the whatever stolen valor, if you want to call it that, but the using a rank that doesn't belong to you. He knew they were going and he chose not to. He let them go with someone else. And men in his unit died, men that he was responsible for. So I really don't want to hear it because you're right. JD Vance has never misstated what he actually did. She may not like his title. That's the title. Too bad if you don't like it. It's just, they're so gross. Here's one other guy, by the way. This is John Kolb, Lieutenant Colonel. He's the man actually who would take over Walz's unit. I don't know how his responsibilities dovetailed with Barron's because I know he also took over some of them. But he had a post that's been making the rounds on Facebook, and it reads in part as follows. I do not regret that Tim Walz retired early from the Minnesota Army National Guard, did not complete the Sergeant's Major Academy, broke his enlistment contract, or did not successfully complete any assignment as a Sergeant Major. Unwittingly, he got out of the way for better leadership. Tom Barron's was the right leader at the right time. He sacrificed to answer the call, leaving his family, business, and farming brother to train, lead, and care for the soldiers. Like a great leader, he ran toward and not away from the guns. By all accounts, he was a competent, this is back to Walz. He was a competent chief of firing, battery, gunnery sergeant, and first sergeant. I cannot say the same of his service sitting frocked in the command sergeant major chair. He did not earn the rank or successfully complete any assignment as an E9. It is an affront to the non-commissioned officer corps that he continues to glom onto the title. I can sit in the cockpit of an airplane, doesn't make me a pilot. Similarly, when the demands of service and leadership at the highest level got real, he chose another path. I'll tell you guys, I don't know where this lands ultimately, but at a minimum, it has completely neutered the Harris Walz campaign's ability to tout this guy's military service completely, because what people will be thinking is it's marred. He did something. Didn't he not serve? He didn't go to Iraq. Didn't he say he did more than he did? He said he used a gun in combat. Haven't they had to walk all this stuff back? I mean, that's how it works in people's minds, Emily, even with a sycophant press corps.
Yeah, it does. And one of the Trump campaign's narratives against Harris and Walz is basically that they're frauds. And, they've had varying successes in leveling those arguments against Harris and Walz. I mean, they're still testing it out. Their entire campaign was against Joe Biden, and they've had to totally, rethink that strategy when Kamala Harris stepped in late in the game. And so I think actually that's where this gets even more damaging, is that's a pretty critical part of the broader narrative that the Trump campaign is trying to make stick against these two, is that they're frauds, that Kamala Harris is a chameleon, that they'll just sort of blow wherever the winds go. Another reason her copying Trump's taxes on tip proposal is probably that it has serious potential to backfire on her and her
She's
campaign.
Sigourney Weaver.
So yeah, she's Sigourney Weaver. And so that is, I think that is actually really a serious problem for them with Tim Walz. It's just, the whole thing, I get the Trump, Vietnam narrative. I understand that. But Donald Trump isn't running on his character. I mean, he never has. It's never been a part of why voters are like, yes, this man. But with Tim Walz, they're trying to make it a huge part of him, right? Donald Trump himself has said, I'm part of the system, and that's how I know I can fix it. All of those things. Tim Walz, they've rolled him out as this guy of sterling heartland character. He is just the guy next door that you would trust. You're going to go get your cup of sugar from Tim Walz. And so that's where this is different.
Some Americans enjoy using their credit cards because it can be a hassle-free and secure way to pay. But our sponsor, the American Payments Coalition, says that some DC politicians want to change that with the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. They say the bill lets corporate megastores pick how your credit card is processed, allowing them to use untested payment networks that jeopardize your data security and rewards. They say corporate megastores will make more money and you will wind up paying the price. Find out more info at guardyourcard.com and consider telling Congress to guard your card while you're there, too. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.